In the vast, timeless heart of Africa, where the very land seems to hum with ancient proverbs and every gust of wind carries a story, there exists a profound truth. Old Elder Amani of Kulumo Valley, his voice as wise and weathered as the river rocks themselves, often shared it: children are the hands we send into tomorrow. But some, in their hunger, chew off their own fingers. It is a truth that speaks of the sacredness of the future, and the hidden dangers of a hunger that goes beyond the belly. This is a tale from the lush hills where the river Kulumo weaved its way between ancient, towering baobab trees, giving life to the village of Ntem. The people there deeply honored the land, cherished the life-giving rains, and held sacred the stories that shaped their very souls. Among them lived a woman named Oluma, beautiful, clever, and endlessly ambitious. Her mind sparkled with ideas that seemed far beyond her time, and her hunger to rise, to gain wealth and power, was unmatched by anyone. This is the story of that hunger, and the terrible price it exacted. If you are just tuning into our channel, please subscribe, it means the world to us. In the heart of Ntem, life was a rhythm of honest work and shared bounty. The market, especially, was a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds, filled with the cheerful bargaining of women exchanging yams for fish, beads for woven mats. But Oluma, a trader like no other, stood apart. She never bought nor sold the simple goods the other women did. Her eyes, sharp and always looking beyond the horizon, seemed to seek something more, something unseen. Oluma owned a sturdy canoe, but when she set out, it was always empty. No baskets of produce, no bundles of cloth. Just Oluma, her paddle, and a fierce gleam in her eyes. She would push off from the familiar riverbank, her strong arms pulling her past the last, comforting curve of the river, into a thick, swirling mist where no other canoe dared to go. This veil of mist, as it was sometimes called, was a place of legends, of unspoken warnings, of spirits and the unknown. The other villagers would watch her go, a mix of awe and unease in their eyes, whispering about her daring. And each time she returned, her canoe, which had left empty, was heavy. Not with yams, or fish, or even common beads, but with shimmering, unknown fabrics, exotic spices with scents no one recognized, and heavy bags that clinked with the sound of countless coins, or raw, uncut precious stones that glittered with an unnatural light. Her simple hut, once like any other, began to gleam with these new treasures: polished wooden carvings from trees unknown, elaborate jewelry with strange designs, and rich carpets woven in distant lands. Her two children, Toi, a lively boy with eyes full of mischief, and Mina, a girl with a voice like a bird's song, were dressed finer than even the chief's family. They had toys no other child possessed, and ate foods that smelled of distant shores. Yet, no one ever saw what Oluma traded to get these riches. She never spoke of her journeys into the mist, her lips sealed by an unspoken agreement. And a strange, quiet sadness began to settle upon her children. Their laughter, once bright and clear, grew less frequent after each of Oluma's trips. Their movements became a little slower, their eyes sometimes vacant, staring at nothing. Mina, who had once sung like a happy bird, began to speak slowly, her voice soft and unsure, as if she was forgetting the words. Toi, who had loved to chase lizards, now often sat silently, watching shadows. Whispers grew in the village, like vines creeping over ancient stones. Some said she dealt with dangerous spirits of the mist, making dark pacts. Others claimed she made terrible sacrifices, trading away unseen things for her visible wealth. One young mother, whose child had fallen ill and whose family faced hunger, accepted Oluma's offer to watch her child for a moon, promising the child would return healthy and fed. But when her daughter returned, she was dull-eyed, thin, and strangely fearful of shadows, no longer playing with the same joy. The mother, though she couldn't explain it, felt a chilling emptiness where her child's spirit used to be. But Oluma, proud and smiling, her eyes glittering with ambition, only said, "If you cannot feed your child, do not ask how I feed mine. Look at my wealth, look at my children's clothes. This is what true work brings." Her words were like a shield, pushing away questions, but the unsettling feeling remained. As seasons turned, the village of Ntem, once so blessed, found itself gripped by a long, merciless drought. The sun beat down fiercely, baking the earth. The river Kalumo, once wide and swift, receded dramatically, exposing cracked mudflats where fish once swam. Crops, once bountiful, turned yellow, then brown, wilting and dying in the fields. The laughter in the village, which used to ring freely, was replaced by anxious sighs and hushed prayers for rain. Many in Ntem, facing the specter of starvation, turned to Oluma, their last hope. She was the only one whose storehouses were full, whose children were plump. She offered food, not just meager rations, but overflowing baskets of yams and grains. She offered fine cloth, gleaming jewelry, even deeds to fertile new land, promising to save their families. But her price was always strange, never money or goods. She asked for small things, a child for a season, sent to learn in her hut, a promise never to question her ways, or simply their complete silence regarding her deals. Mothers wept, their faces etched with unbearable sorrow, as they handed over sons and daughters, their stomachs too hungry to say no, their hearts breaking with a fear they couldn't name. The thought of losing a child, even for a season, was agony, but the alternative was starvation. And the children who went to Oluma's hut for a season always returned changed. They were well fed, yes, but their eyes often held a vacant, faraway look. They spoke less, their once bright spirits dimmed. They seemed to have lost a part of their zest, their curiosity, their very spark. The village grew quieter, not just from drought, but from the fading joy of its children. Elder Amani, watching the subtle shifts, felt a growing dread in his bones. The balance of Ntem was being profoundly disturbed. And the land noticed. The earth, which had once nurtured Ntem so generously, began to subtly protest. The crops, even those that managed to survive the drought, tasted bitter, their sustenance drained. The goats, usually so fertile, birthed stillborn young, or their milk dried up. The very animals seemed to carry a weight of sadness. And the river Kalumo, once full and faithful, now receded faster than ever, its remaining water looking murky, almost resentful, as if mourning the unseen sacrifices. The harmony between the people and the land, a bond forged over centuries, was fraying. Each time Oluma made a trade, agreeing to a new transaction, a subtle, ethereal light, like a wisp of golden smoke, seemed to leave her chest. It would detach from her very being and drift towards the spirit merchant, which absorbed it, its golden smoke seeming to glow brighter. And with each exchange, the empty canoe behind her began to fill with shimmering gold dust, then rare, uncut precious stones that glittered with an unholy light and exotic, unknown spices whose scent was intoxicating. Amani watched, horrified, as he saw the truth. Oluma was trading not for commodities, but for pieces of her own children's potential, their future, their unseen gifts, returning only as material wealth. It was a dark, profound transfer of life energy for dead gold. Amani tried to scream, to warn her, to expose the horrifying truth, but no sound escaped his lips. The veil of Kalumo, the invisible barrier to the spirit world, stifled his voice, trapping his cry in his throat. He watched in profound, silent horror as Oluma, her face etched with a desperate greed, continued to make her deals. She had not eaten her children with teeth, he realized with chilling clarity, but she was devouring their very essence, their future, with her relentless choices. And with each trade, he saw a light leave her own eyes, a subtle fading of her own vibrant spark, replaced by a hollow gleam of ambition. She was paying the price too, becoming a vessel for dead gold, losing her own inheritance essence. The tragedy was far deeper than anyone in Ntem could have imagined. Back in Ntem, the terrible consequences of Oluma's unseen trade manifested most cruelly in her own children, Toi and Mina. Once bright stars, brimming with youthful energy and curious laughter, they now moved like clouds with no wind, their spirits subtly drained, their bodies just shells of their former selves. Mina, who had once sung with the joy of 1,000 birds, now tried, but only a flat, dull hum emerged from her throat, her melodies forgotten. Toi, who had loved to chase lizards and challenge his friends to races, now often sat silently, staring for hours at nothing, his eyes vacant, devoid of the sparkle they once held. Other villagers tried to interact with them, to coax them back to their playful selves. "Why don't you play with us, Mina?" a friend would ask. "Why do you stare so, Toy?" another would wonder. They would only respond with simple, emotionless answers, their voices soft and empty. "We don't know how," Mina once whispered when asked why she no longer sang. "There is nothing to see," Toy murmured when questioned about his blank stares. Their essence, their vibrant, inheritance essence, had been systematically siphoned away, exchanged for gold and fine fabrics. Oluma, consumed by her ever-growing wealth, seemed oblivious to their fading, or perhaps, in her ambition, she deliberately ignored the terrible signs, choosing to see only their healthy bodies, not their dying spirits. That season, the drought in Ntem grew even more severe. The land groaned, and the desperation in the village was palpable. Oluma, seeking to secure even greater wealth, made her most chilling decision yet. She would take both Toy and Mina with her on her next journey into the mist, to the Vale of Kalomo. She told the villagers they would be safer, better fed, in a special place. Her expression was determined, almost cold, as she led her children to the canoe. Toy and Mina followed her silently, like shadows, their small forms devoid of energy, their faces empty of protest. The canoe disappeared into the swirling mist, carrying not just a mother and her children, but the very future of Ntem. Weeks later, Oluma returned. Her canoe, this time, was overflowing with an unprecedented amount of treasure, shimmering gold coins piled high, massive gemstones that pulsed with an unnatural light, and rare artifacts that spoke of unimaginable power. Her face was triumphant, her smile stretched and unnatural, but her eyes, though gleaming with ambition, were hollow, reflecting nothing but the cold glitter of gold. The villagers gathered, searching anxiously for Toy and Mina. "Where are your children, Oluma?" Elder Amani asked, his voice trembling with dread. Oluma, without a flicker of emotion, simply stated, "They stayed behind. They wanted peace." Her voice was flat, devoid of a mother's warmth, chilling the blood of those who heard it. The village fell silent, a profound, sickening silence broken only by the vast amount of treasure clinking in her canoe, a sound that now seemed grotesque, cursed. Weeks later, a profound, heartbreaking twist came with the gentle current of the river Kalomo. A little girl from the next village over, untouched by Ntem's creeping sadness, was skipping cheerfully by the riverbank. Her eyes, still bright with innocence, spotted two small, beautifully carved wooden dolls floating gently on the water, almost as if placed there by an unseen hand. One doll wore tiny, intricately carved sandals, just like the ones Toy had worn. The other had shell-braided hair, almost identical to Mina's own distinctive style. The little girl, delighted by her discovery, brought the dolls to her own village, showing them to her grandmother. News of the strange dolls quickly reached Ntem. They were brought to Elder Amani. He recognized them instantly. His hands trembled as he took the tiny, silent figures. He saw the sandals, the shell braids. His face crumpled with immense grief and a terrible, chilling understanding. He wept openly, clutching the dolls to his chest, his body shaking with profound sorrow. "They were not toys," he choked out, his voice raw with pain, "they were what was left. The last, silent pieces of their laughter, their dreams, their very beings." The village gathered at Oluma's home, their faces stern, their sorrow now mingled with cold, terrible clarity. They found her sitting amidst her overwhelming treasure, a vast mountain of gold and jewels. Her skin was stretched tight, almost transparent, her body frail. Her eyes, once so sharp and ambitious, were unblinking, hollow, reflecting nothing but the cold glitter of gold around her. She looked like a beautiful, living statue, slowly fading away. As they stood before her, silent in their grief and condemnation, Oluma whispered, her voice barely audible, but carrying the weight of centuries of tragic choices. "I tried to own time," she confessed, her voice dry as dust, "I tried to command tomorrow. But I fed my hunger with what should have fed my name, my lineage, my future." Then, her gaze distant, she uttered the most horrifying truth, a revelation that shattered their understanding of time and legacy. "My mother was a traitor too. She made the same deal with the spirit merchant. I was once the seed. The silence that followed was absolute, filled with the horrifying realization that Oluma herself had been a child whose inheritance essence was traded, born from a similar pact, passed down through generations. Her boundless ambition was not just her own, it was a curse, a hunger inherited, a desperate attempt to fill a void created by a previous generation's greed. She was both the victim and the perpetrator, chained to a cycle of consumption. The wealth around her was not a blessing, but a monumental, tangible representation of stolen futures. As Oluma spoke her final, chilling words, her body began to shimmer, an eerie, transparent glow. It slowly, horrifyingly, dissolved into fine, dark ash, crumbling into nothingness, leaving no trace. In its place, on the ground, remained only her canoe, still filled with the overwhelming amount of golden coins and rare jewels. But now, in a chilling detail, the jewels were subtly wet, glistening not with light, but as if filled with tears that never dried, the silent, eternal grief of generations of lost futures. The people of Ntem understood then. Hunger was not only stomach-deep, easily satisfied by yams and fish. It could live deeper, in the very soul, a boundless ambition for power and wealth. And if left unbridled, if allowed to consume without consequence, it devoured not just children's laughter, not just individual lives, but the very essence of a community, the land itself. The river Kalumo, once a vibrant artery, never rose fully again, its waters sluggish and shallow, its song muted. Ntem lived, but its spirit was forever marked, a testament to the devastating cost of consuming tomorrow for today's gain. Some say Oluma's spirit sails still, forever condemned to trade with the spirit merchant, endlessly seeking wealth, trapped in a cycle of consumption. They say she seeks out others who hunger too quickly, whispering promises of easy riches, subtly luring them to the vale of Kalumo. Her name became a powerful, chilling warning whispered across the land, her canoe a monument to profound, irreparable loss. A tree that eats its own seeds may grow tall for a season, Elder Amani's words echoed through the ages, but it will never leave a forest behind. Greed that sacrifices the future for immediate gain is the most terrible hunger of all. It is the hunger that eats its own children, devouring not just their laughter, but the very essence of tomorrow, leaving only an empty silence behind.